Remember those? A lot of the Channel 9 specials have been full of magic over the past few years, but tonight we're going to celebrate a different kind of magic. Almost anything's possible in television now, but 40 years ago, just getting a picture was considered magic. Now, this radio studio may seem like a strange place to start, but this is where it all began. WDJO was WCPO radio, 1230 on your AM dial. See, WCPO began as the radio voice of the Cincinnati Post back in 1935. That's what CPO means, Cincinnati Post Organization. And here's some other things you may not know. When WCPO was first on the air, we were Channel 7, and we were affiliated with the ABC Broadcasting Network. And when you see this car with the #1 license plate, you know it's being driven by the man who started it all. He doesn't move as fast as he used to. His office is just a reminder of who he was. An innovator, a firebrand. He was one of the greats. Mort Waters is the beginning of Channel 9.
I remember the day well. July 26, 1949. We're about to officially put Channel 7, WCPO TV, on the air.
It's been 40 years. Mort Waters, general manager of WCPO Radio, was convinced that television was the wave of the future. WCPO TV would be formed by Mort's vision.
Most stations, like KRC and LW, would only go on for an hour or so a day. They go on from 2 to 3 in the afternoon and sign off and come back on again at maybe 7 o'clock at night for an hour or two, and then that's it. They said, no, it's got to be just like radio. Whenever you go to that thing and turn it on, something's got to be happening, even if it's just a guy reading the phone book.
CPO hit the air with a splash. The first night, Cincinnati watched the Reds-Braves game live from Crosley Field. But Mort's first success story was a show that aired a few hours before. It was radio on television. And when the records played, it was pantomime time.
And like a laughing brook that dances in the sun, my lady has a barrel of fun.
Yep, that's how Bob Braun got his start.
Whatever we did was okay, because if it moved, if you could see and hear something, the people were fascinated by it.
One cigarette, dear.
King size.
There's time. Don't look at the clock up in the stable.
Ain't it a shame when you're working people?
But the big star of the show was Dottie Mack, queen of the pantomime, who soon had her own show.
This is my song.
Dottie was the best at pantomiming you ever saw in your life. I mean, you could not tell it was not she who was singing.
Take a chance, take a chance. Tell him now that you care.
Can't you see I'm helplessly, hopelessly, breathlessly thrilled by your kiss?
I have a son who is 28 years old, and he has looked at these tapes and he couldn't quite understand, well, what kind of talent is this? This is Rosemary Clooney singing and you're mouthing. I said, honey, in those days, this was talent.
One night I was late, came home from a date.
Dottie now lives in New York, but visits Cincinnati often. It's still home, especially when she can get together with some of the other pioneers of Cincinnati television.
Hi, Dottie.
How are you?
Fine, I got you.
It was a wonderful, wonderful time of my life, and I don't want to lose it. I want to keep it. I want to keep it forever.
And then we thought, what is Paul Dixon going to do on television? So I don't know whose
I get a
idea
little
was-
teary-eyed thinking about the good times that I've had during that period. I don't think I was his greatest discovery. I was just one of his discoveries.
When you speak.
Another of Mort's discoveries was Ramona Burnett, whose 5-minute weather show was a Cincinnati favorite.
I think I would prefer our furnace city
Yuma, Arizona, where a lucky humans bask in 86-degree sunshine. Now,
But in 1958, Ramona's assistant, Paula Jane Schultz, took over.
So it should be across the Mississippi Valley region by early tomorrow and then begin to dissipate there. But the
Paula
low is
predicts
going to
ran 4 years before Paula Jane moved to another WCPO show. Remember this?
Romper, bumper, stomper, do. Tell me if it's true. And then I would look in my magic mirror and I would see little Michelle and Richard and, oh, you haven't been minding your mother today, Bernie. And Joe, pay attention to what you're doing.
Think how cloudy the sky was yesterday when we came out, Mort, and now look at it.
Well, Paula left television to become Mrs. Mort Waters. Now they spend their time enjoying a slower pace. Mort's weekly trips to the station keep him in touch with his past, and his memoirs will make sure that Cincinnati television history will live forever.
Now all we had to figure out is what to put in those hours that we were faced with.
It's a very different kind of life than it used to be. It's quiet, more relaxed, no schedules, no deadlines. Out here, it's just Al and Wanda. Weeks before WCPO TV went on the air, Mort hired Al Lewis as art director and to fill an hour each day with songs from his nightclub act. Wanda joined the Paul Dixon Show, pantomiming songs with Dottie Mack and Bob Braun. Soon, Al began a morning show, the Corner Drugstore, and quite by accident, history was made.
One day, the kids were standing in the studio door. So I, in desperation, called them in, and I knelt down, and I started showing them how the accordion works. I said, here's how a polka sounds, bup, 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 bup. And one kid started hopping up and down. That's how the show started. The next day, they came back, and Mother started calling on how to get kids on this kid show. What kid show? It was not preconceived. It just happened like a miracle.
Good morning, boys and girls. Hi, it's Uncle Al. Are we going to have fun today on the farm? Don't go away because we're going to sing and dance and have all the things to do. See you in a second. Ouch!
That was 15,000 shows ago. No one in the history of television has logged more children's shows than Cincinnati's favorite uncle.
Put your right hand in and take your right hand out. You push your right. Everybody sing and dance. Shake it all the back.
Not only did I really like kids, but I found that I had an ability to kneel down and talk to them on their level, eye to eye with them. And I held out my hands, they would run to me. Their power of excitement would just pick you up and you would just roll.
Now, you kids at home now, get your spoons together or clap your hands. Do anything you like or jump up and down, but let's all play. Here we go.
Nothing lasted longer than 3 minutes because you could sense you were losing their attention. So boom, let's switch the tempo, let's run across the studio and get in the streetcar or build a building or something like that. We never let them get bored.
I'll blow my magic horn and we'll look up into the sky. And maybe we see Captain Windy up so very high.
Hi, boys and girls. Say, I'm flying over the new Albert supermarkets now.
Without her, I couldn't have done it. It's very simple as that. Being my wife, it was easier for her to work with. What she contributed to the show was very, very much important. I think there were many times that children related more to her than they did to me because I couldn't fly. I feel different when I put the bow tie, the hat, and the accordion on. It's like maybe a clown putting his makeup on. His personality maybe would change. There is two different people here, yes.
Well, let's say hi, Uncle Al! Hi, Captain Windy!
The reception today is even greater than I think when we were on the air because now the audience has grown up. They remember those times. This is one of the few things they remember in their whole life as a happy time, getting on the Uncle Al show and becoming a part of it that they watched at home, stuck in their minds.
Okay, march real fast. Come on, swing your arms. Oh, la, 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 Al and Wanda still enjoy sharing a song with the next generation, but the best performances are the ones we don't get to see. After being the city's best babysitter for 35 years, they are now the command performance favorite for their grandchildren.
If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. Ow! If you're happy.
The grandchildren fill a great void, and we have a good time. I don't want grandfather. I like Uncle Al, and that's what they use.
My, oh my, what a wonderful day. Plenty of sunshine heading my way. Zippity-doo-dah, zippity-day, Mr. Blue.
I don't want to grow up. We're all a child in our souls, in our hearts. I always want to be Uncle Al, somewhere, someplace, somehow. He came, he played his music, he drew his pictures, he made children laugh, and he loved every minute of it.
Barney Google with the googly eyes, everybody.
The fact that it was live, I think, meant much more than being on tape or anything. They just said, look at that little red light, and when that goes on, start singing, or when the band gives the introduction, start singing, you know. I had no idea that this is the beginning of something, you know, big.
Bob Shreve, the fourth stooge. He spent many years at WCPO, even started his movie host antics here. That was produced at our first TV studio in Walnut Hills. You know, in those days, getting on the air was easy compared to what came next. What do you put on the air? When most people think of Channel 9, they think of news, but we've had quite a history of entertainment, too. Just take a look at these people and shows and see how many you remember.
It's the Lynn Mink Show. Yeah, they're all here at TV Dance Party, coming your way from the Coca-Cola Bottling Works Auditorium. Boy, they're here too, I'll tell you. Let's see, we have them from Simon Kenton, do we, huh? Maysville, Boone County.
Springtime, a musical special about a special season in Cincinnati with singer Larry Kinley.
Is Elvis still the king?
Can Bayreuth break new ground?
Did Cincinnati Magazine tame the wild man?
Everyone's talking about it.
What was your favorite part, Pat?
Oh, it had to be Randy blowing that trombone.
You roll tape again, please.
I still think we should call it The Son of Celebrate Cincinnati, the sequel, Part 2.
Well, hi. Welcome to Movie Matinee. This is your hostess, Wanda Lewis, and I want you to sit down with us for about an hour and a half.
Big John, Big John, Big Bad John.
King of the Hot Pants Lovers, Nick Clooney!
Good, yeah, stand up there. Come in. Wait a minute.
Karen, you have a right to be represented by an attorney. Do you want to exercise that right?
No, sir.
For 8 years, Judge Paul Trevor presided over the most visible court in Cincinnati.
Approximately a year later, as the Robinsons were returning from a family outing, another car struck their car in the rear. This collision
For 24 years, Professor Sam Wilson has presided over the classroom courts at the University of Cincinnati.
Well, wouldn't the approximate cause of that accident be the negligence of the driver who rammed the Robinsons' car from the rear?
Well, Your Honor,
It's been 6 years since Sam retired from Channel 9's juvenile court, and although most of his students no longer remember his time on the bench, he still remembers those days fondly.
In the interest of exploring a vital social issue, WCPO TV presents Juvenile Court.
It was one of the first of its kind, a concept we now take for granted. The cases were taken from the files of Cincinnati Juvenile Court. The actors were local school children, community theater actors, and parents.
Just
blew up. I mean, I didn't even know what I was doing until it was done. But I'm glad I did it because you deserved every bit of it. Maybe I'm not the only one who needs a little knocking around.
Shame on you.
So you're not sorry for it. You think she
No.
deserved it.
Yes.
I wouldn't want to be a real judge. Nice thing about being a television judge is that nobody really goes to jail. Being a play judge is much more fun. You know what a lawyer is, Davey?
Yeah.
What?
He's some guy who comes in and helps you out and, you know, defends you when you get in trouble.
And they never knew what questions I was going to ask. So the thing came off amazingly, at least amazing to me, as to how realistic it really was.
You weren't aware of what was happening?
No, I was at work, Your Honor, and they used my tools, and this bomb could have exploded in my own garage. It could have burnt my own house down. And, John, this is the last prank that you'll ever do in your life.
Then never do this.
I had one interesting experience one time when I went to, I pulled out my credit card and it said Samuel S. Wilson on it, and the fella says, well, you're not Samuel S. Wilson, you're Judge Paul Trevor. And I had to pull out my driver's license to show him who I really was. The guy was really firmly convinced that Judge Paul Trevor lived. Responsibility. Now, most people don't have any trouble understanding that you can take a piece of property and divide it physically.
Sam's performing days are over. He's happy to play judge for his university law classes, but the sign on his desk will forever stand as a reminder of his place in Cincinnati television history.
I don't have that many students left who remember Judge Trevor from television. It's more common they'll come in and see this sign that says Judge Paul Trevor and they'll say, who is he? So I guess that's what happens to fame.
It was the fall of '57. 18-year-old Larry Smith walked out of high school and onto the set of his own show. And Cincinnati fell in love with Rudy the Rooster and Teaser the Mouse.
Safely and on time. How's the plant coming along? Well, just about finished it now.
We were accepted into the homes, and that was something that was so unique. We were friends. We were like somebody you had in for coffee or tea or milk or cookies.
Rudy, Teaser, and all their friends have retired to Larry's Westwood basement, all waiting for the hand that will bring them to life.
Well, that probably threw the microphone off. Good evening or afternoon. Hello there. Oh, it's good to see you all. 'Tis I, one and only, Hattie the Witch.
Hello there. My name is Snarfy. Snarfy R. Dog. Spooky #1 Ghost Rider.
Wyatt Earp. He makes me burp.
Well, hello there. My name's Teaser, Teaser the Mouse. I'm one of the oldest characters that started in television, way back in 1952. I hate to say that. Yes, Teaser. Yeah, your voice had hardly changed at that time.
Puppets are really just imitations of life, and it's different ways of using characters, of people you might meet. When we were doing the contemporaries, I'd go down in Cincinnati and just walk around watching people for ideas, something new for the screen. I was using people, which puppets are just imitations.
Thank you, and welcome to you friends of the contemporaries.
Hooray, hooray, I'm going away with the man in the little white coat.
The contemporaries were sort of they're a cloth material. You didn't have all of the animation, but they were larger, and we could get a lot different movement.
If I can take my coffee break, something within me dies.
They were kind of a look of the beatniks, the nebbish of the 60s, and it was a different look. And here's one we used on the contemporaries. Also, this was done on the Uncle Al show, too, on the network show. This was Katie the Kangaroo. This is all carved out of wood, the feet. Also was Timey Kangaroo Down Sport.
All together now, Timey Kangaroo Down Sport, Timey Kangaroo Down, Timey Kangaroo Down Sport, Timey Kangaroo Down. Keep me cockatoo, cool curl.
They've been his entire life, creations of plastic, cloth, and wood that have become Larry's family, Cincinnati's friends. Larry still spends a lot of time in the workshop. It's a labor of love to repair the aging, to create a new generation, and, along with partner Don Glanzer, to plan shows for their new audience.
He's got his hat, his Batman cap, and that's not all. See the cape?
Oh, yes, you can see the cape. What's underneath that bat cape, Snarfy?
Well, let me show you.
Well, take it off. Let's see. Oh, he's got his special Batman T-shirt. Open it up. Let's see. There.
It's almost like being in television again. Almost every week, the Larry Smith puppets come back to life. But this time, the children of 30 years ago bring their children to visit old friends.
Oh, for heaven's sakes, you startled me. I tell you what, somebody just said I didn't comb my hair today. Is that true? Yeah. Well, I do too. I comb it every day. Every day I do. Mm-hmm. With an egg beater. Oh, hair, yes.
The young children, they still like puppets. They still enjoy puppets, although I think the adults get a bigger kick out of it than the kids do. That they're remembering, reliving their childhood. If it would come back, we'd love to be a part of it. Hattie and Rudy and Teaser and Snarfy, I'm sure, would be there. He'd be running the show to get it started.
This is Larry Smith thanking you for watching our show today. And we hope that you will be joining us next week at the same time for the Rudy and Teaser Show.
Goodbye, everybody. See you all next week.
When you buy a new appliance, you want to know you're getting the most for your money, whether it's a range, a washer, or perhaps a refrigerator. Well, Norge welcomes comparison.
I remember one night I was doing a commercial. It was a 2-minute commercial, a live one. I got in there and I said a couple of words backwards, and it started me laughing. I laughed for 2 minutes. And the director didn't know what to do, and I didn't know what to do. I was trying to straighten up. And so finally, we just quit and went back to the movie. But I did about 8 to 15 live commercials a day.
Of the many fine Zenith
From the very beginning, commercials were what made television possible. But television is more than commercials, news, and entertainment. One of the reasons why I really love working at Channel 9 is because I get to work within the community. Like with Cincinnati Dreams Come True, here at Children's Hospital's Medical Center. It's our way to put back to the community. And I'm sure you'll recognize some of the shows that we put on the air in order to inform, to help, and to show you that we care. Shows like Call the Doctor, Play It Safe, Health Watch, Police Call, and our literacy special. But something most people don't know is that television time isn't the only way that we're part of Cincinnati.
Aha, one in.
Several times a week, Hasker Nelson spends his lunchtime shooting pool with friends.
Okay.
It's a release, something he does for himself, because his job and his life are spent doing things for others.
Good morning, I'm Hasker Nelson. One of the major
Many people know Hasker because of his Sunday morning television show, but it was because of the people of Cincinnati that this show got started 14 years ago.
Over and this 100 people would be there, and then
there
they'd
were
another
community groups going to all of the stations saying, there are not enough black folks that work at television stations. I was one of the people who came in as a result of those kind of community efforts.
But 14 years with Black Memo hasn't been all information.
His latest recording is called All Things in Time, and I'll just slip it up here and let you take a look at it, because our guest is Mr. Lou Rawls.
In case some of you might happen to be from another planet, we're talking about Nancy Wilson.
Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Ella Fitzgerald.
I
And
run
really
across a lot of non-blacks who say, hey, aren't you that guy that's on every Sunday morning? I say, yeah. And they'll say, hey, you're doing a good job. Now, what we can do is, there is an organization called
Citizens Committee on Youth. It's located...
Black Memo is just a small part of Hasker's job. Every month you'll find him talking with community leaders to see how Channel 9 can better serve Cincinnati.
An awful lot of anti-drug programming. Can we really be a force in getting this whole thing turned around, or are we simply... We canvass the community through a process called ascertainment. And right now, the number one thing is education of young people.
What it is it's a multiple programs and a lot of...
Hasker's most recent response to Cincinnati is the All About Kids campaign.
When it all starts, you just look at that, see that TV?
This is the least seen, but one of the most important parts of a television station, being part of Cincinnati.
Uh-oh, now you're in the sky. Are just human beings. People at our company, like me, go out and just sort of do some stuff in the community just because it's the right thing to do.
How can we, when we're dealing with communication with human beings about their attitude, you don't make the choice on what each one of us thinks.
We, the people of Hamilton County, make that determination.
While many of us spend our lives trying to avoid trouble, there are a few who seek it.
One question. Sheriff, community standards are much different today than they were.
Alan White's life has been surrounded by controversy. It followed him through the 60s. He became one of Cincinnati's most recognized TV personalities in the 70s, and now in the 80s, no one has been in TV news longer. The 90s will bring a change. Soon, all that will remain are memories. But until then, Alan White will do what few do better, television news.
We've talked about it a couple of times, but the fact of the matter is that they just had this evidence, this physical evidence for 5...
It's a familiar sight every morning in the newsroom. Dozens of reporters, producers, and editors lay out the day's strategy. But that's not the way it was 30 years ago when WCPO News first went on the air.
What we may be looking at, maybe not today, but sometime, is what may be the demise of the unions.
Back in the 60s, we had a very small staff, and our staff built slowly. At the very beginning, Al was the news director and the newscaster. I was the reporter and the staff.
Now tell me, now that you're out of public office, does it still bother you to have reporters like myself dogging you continually?
No, that's part of the game. We really didn't know what we were doing. There were no textbooks on the subject. There were really no precedents. We came to work every day, and every day was a brand new adventure. Something was different, and it was fun. Back then, what we considered a special coup on a news story was to get a photographer on a scene of a breaking news story, shoot a Polaroid picture, and get that Polaroid picture back to the studio and get it on the news, and that was good. Do you believe Ratterman's story that he was drugged?
No, sir.
What do you believe?
I believe that
without knowing it, we had, I guess, what was the first live remote news broadcast in Cincinnati television. This was during the Ratterman trial in Newport in the early 60s, and it was a sensational trial.
Mrs. Ratterman, you have...
We did live interviews with the cast of the Ratterman trial, and it was good television. That was the first live remote.
Mrs. Verona, I don't understand your claims that you're suppressed and discriminated against. From what I observe, American womanhood never had it so good. You disagree?
Yes, of course I disagree.
The theory that we tried to practice in our news during those years was this: to ask a person the question that they would least like for you to ask them.
Sir, we didn't hear how you traded 3 bribery charges for one obstruction of justice. Can't you explain that one to me? Mr. Lees, don't you feel that this is worthy of a comment? Can't you tell me how you traded 3 briberies for one obstruction of justice charge? Thank you, Mr. Lees.
Car 2, Tom Costell, Laurie Stafford. Come in, Tom.
The last few years Alan has spent as assignment editor, a kind of newsroom quarterback.
Here's your letter from Dingle. Channel 9 News, I'll wait and help you. Yo, Larry, deal, that's an old call. It's an old call.
Few people who work here now remember Al's years as a news reporter, or that Al was the host of his own live show, Impact. But like so much of live TV, not one frame from his 15 years has survived. So, just one more time, live from the WCPO studios, Al White invited the old panel to return for one more show.
Good evening and hello again, folks. It's been a long time, almost 15 years since our last Impact program. And those of you Impact was right for its times. It was on the air during the time of the social revolution in the 60s, at a time when personal opinion was the thing of the day. I'm not too sure that that personal opinion is a thing of this day. I think that we have probably too many couch potatoes.
I don't think so.
It's not difficult to determine what's
Exactly.
upset.
Of course it isn't
I
difficult
mean,
for
jurors
persons
never
with
had major
closed
problems
minds.
with it.
Of course it isn't
Poppycock.
I know it when I see it.
Well, yeah, according
You
to
know
that's
when
your
you see
standard.
it, along with the
So
old
do
lady.
you.
And you,
So do
It did bring back memories. You know, they say you can't go home again. Maybe that's true, but by golly, it's good to visit.
Talking about the old lady from
But she knows it when
So now, after 30 years, more than 700 Impact shows, more than 9,000 newscasts, Al is changing careers. Next month, he'll begin working as a professional grandfather. There are swings to push, basketballs to shoot, and a world without deadlines to enjoy. And so after pioneering television news from the beginning, Alan White will get his news with the rest of us.
I think that I've lived through probably one of the most interesting and envious television news careers that anyone can have. I've been in the news business 41 years. And so now it's time for somebody else to do it.
So much for the movies. Time for the sports. Jack Moran.
The word Billiken, according to Mr. Webster, means a symbol of good cheer. But for the first half tonight, it meant bad news for the Bearcats. UC won 79.
I remember the very first night I was on the 11 o'clock news, and when Al said, "Now with sports, here's Jack." And I'll tell you, my hands were like this when they're shaking because it was all new to me, television. And I was, the butterflies were flying in my stomach.
Associated Press poll today, Syracuse University was named.
Growing up
Team
in
of the Year
Cincinnati,
for
I always got my news from Channel 9 and my sports news directly from the source, Jack Moran. However, I bet you didn't know who WCPO's first sports anchor was. It was the late and legendary Hall of Famer, Wade Hoyt.
And Charlie was a catcher with the Memphis Chickasaws at the time, and he was my catcher at different points. He never wore shin guards.
For decades now, Channel 9 has been the place for news. Remember the 7 o'clock news?
Bar of soap, plunked down 15 cents for a towel, walked into the bathhouse, and had a hot shower.
How about the 7 o'clock report?
The 7 o'clock report, Channel 9's news magazine.
This probably looks familiar to you. You will recognize this as the Channel 9 newsroom. 65 people working behind the scenes to bring you more than 3 hours of news every day. All of this goes back to the foundation of news at this station. It was a legacy of love for one man who saw only one way to do news, and his way became the style book for newscasts across the country. It goes all the way back to the time in Cincinnati when news was a 13-letter word.
11 o'clock, and time for the Al Shuttlecotty News, brought to you tonight and every night with the H&S Pope Company, Cincinnati's quality department stores downtown and the Kenwood Plaza. And now, with the news, here's Al Shuttlecotty, featured columnist of the Cincinnati Enquirer.
Good evening. Cincinnati's Neil McElroy and the elaborate coming-out party of Henry Ford's
1959. Al Shuttlecotty accepts Mort Waters' offer to build a news department. For 27 years, Al developed a style that would be copied across the nation. But from the beginning, it was his signature piece that we all remember.
And now, here's tonight's Spotlight Report.
There's a movie premiere scheduled for tomorrow night at the Valley Theater. The Gene Krupa story, it's called.
That originated when I started doing a radio program every night, 1953. And then in television, that was a staple on the nightly 11 o'clock news. And still going on in a modified way. You rolling?
Yes.
After solving some snags with their first few batches, they began serving up their own brews over the weekend.
Al can still be seen every week with his Spotlight reports. It's one way he keeps his hand in the news, but there is another way. It's his new passion, and it will make Cincinnati the leader in training media professionals.
This is going to be a combination. Some of the space will be classroom space, and down here,
Al is president of the Scripps Howard Foundation, dedicated to journalistic excellence. He gives scholarships to college students and is about to open a new school, the first of its kind anywhere in the world, the Cincinnati High School for the Communication Professions.
Knowing how to twist dials and push buttons and play with computers is fine, but it still takes what comes out of here to do the job.
Absolutely.
Students who attend this school will learn from textbooks and professionals. But when Al began, there were no textbooks, no rules. He made them up as he went along.
Good afternoon. Al Shuttlecotty here with the news of '59, as our WCPO TV cameras lived it and filmed it.
Around Washington, and that is the determination of President Ford to push through his program for energy.
Good evening. There is a new and closer familiarity with the warfare in Beirut tonight. Well, we had a style we developed. People really worked, and they were forewarned when they came to work that at any time along the way, if there's a choice between someone's convenience and comfort and getting our job done, we're going to get our job done.
I have used up all my other resources. I didn't know what else to do. So I just decided I would call Al and see if he could help me.
Al did help. His investigative report cleared this Woodlawn man of false imprisonment. And an art thief was willing to return this stolen Rembrandt painting, but only to Al.
It appears to have been defaced just a bit down in this area here. Do you know if that was there, or is that something new?
My guess it would be new, but there's no possible way I could say that.
We had the reputation of being, you know, hard-nosed conservative down the line. We innovated. We did all kinds of things nobody'd ever done before. Happy Talk really originated in our newscast. You can go back to the first ones we did. Jack Moran and I used to get into repartee. We never did it by design. It was spontaneous.
Incidentally, you got me into trouble with my bank in coming out there the other night with that film of my dog doing its tricks. You brought out this name is Mitzi. The teller in the bank, her name is Mitzi Illy. She thinks he named it. Well, I won't go into what she thinks.
I don't think being predictable or being completely conventional is always necessary.
Gunsmoke, starring James Arness as Matt Dillon.
Oh, my acting career. That was a promotion thing CBS came up with one year.
And I herewith declare this United States Circuit Court, with Judge Lucius C. Brooking presiding, reconvened. You may be seated.
I suppose it probably is a measure of my success as a network television actor that I was never asked to do another one.
When I got to the scene, there were lights a-flashing, there were stretchers all around, and wearing gauze was in fashion.
Oh, yes. A bus full of nuns. The video, the music video.
He spoke with a smile, and these were his words. It was a bus full of nuns holding babies. A bus full of nuns holding babies. A bus full of nuns holding babies, and their arms went off the cliff.
I was asked, why on earth would you ever do that? And I told people the truth, to embarrass my kids. And they were embarrassed by it.
Now Al has time to relax, to look back at the accomplishments of an incredible career. But there is one day that stands out more than all the others. October 15th, 1980.
The news report that you're getting here is coming from a parking lot just north of the station, and also is originating from our transmitter in Walnut Hills. Our station downtown is literally shut down. It is not operating.
At 2 o'clock in the morning, James Hoskins took reporter Elaine Green and several others hostage in the Channel 9 newsroom. Her interview at gunpoint is still frightening 9 years later.
I shot her. She's dead.
How can we help you now?
You can't. I'm dead man.
It's like going back in time. I still get a queasy feeling in my stomach, and it's still very frightening.
We learned in San Francisco, this is a hustle. You learn to use disability to buy weapons. You grow dope to buy weapons. People are arming. Everybody's arming. And in the process...
He was actually charming, a little bit flirtatious, smiled a lot, and was very, very nice and accommodating. There's one place in the interview that I think really, though, is revealing. It's when someone came into the room, and that's when he lifted his gun and said, "Come on in." And he said it about 3 times. And then if you watch his eyes, they go from a kind of a twinkle to kind of a cold stare.
We need people like, come on in, come on in.
Ralph,
It's okay. Nobody's getting hurt. Just come on in.
Ralph.
Hey, come on in.
You better come on in.
Come in, please.
Come on in. It's too late now. Grab your seat over there.
Sit down.
Park it over here so we keep everybody together.
Even when I see that now, it sends a chill down my spine.
I don't intend to hurt anybody, so don't be, you know.
I know when that interview was going on, you'll see the microphone doesn't shake. And I thought, even though I'm afraid of you, you're not going to make me look that way. So I took my hand and propped the microphone and held it. And I think, you know, I'm calm on the outside, but I certainly wasn't so calm on the inside.
On this tape, is there any other point you wanted to make?
I can't think of any point I want to make, except give me a place where the police can come and get me, and we're going to shoot it out. And you people can leave.
Hoskins did free his hostages and barricaded himself in the station. Al was with the police when they found that Hoskins had murdered his girlfriend. Hours later, Al followed the SWAT team into the station, and the siege was over as quickly as it began.
I've sat in this desk, stood in this position many a time, but never under the circumstances, never dreaming under the circumstances that exist at this moment. The man who had barricaded himself in here 12 hours ago for 2 hours holding 9 of our employees hostage has ended his own life, and this siege has come to a conclusion.
For her outstanding interview at gunpoint, Elaine Green was awarded the Peabody, the most prestigious award in television. Elaine now runs Video Features, a Cincinnati video production company. She looks back on the siege as the most terrifying day in her career. And Al looks back on it as another dramatic event in a remarkable career, the career of a newsman who has become a legend.
I don't think about being remembered. I've never been much for that sort of thing. I did the work that I've committed my working career to, and I gave it my best.
That's it for now. Until tomorrow night at 11, may it all be good news to you.
When television began, there was no videotape. Over the years, most of Cincinnati television history has been lost or destroyed. Very little has survived. So when the Historical Society opens their special broadcast exhibit at Union Terminal next year, we will donate copies of all our film and video so that you can watch them whenever you want, and so that they'll live forever. It's a fascinating history, and looking over all these videotapes, there's something that we came to realize. The magic of the past 40 years is far more than special effects. It has to do with the special relationship between Cincinnati and WCPO. For 4 decades, we've shared a lot together. And from the beginning, the magic was the group of Cincinnatians who brought their talents to you. And because of them, we've all grown together, sharing laughs and songs, helping each other through the tough times, and celebrating the good. We've shared our childhood, our friends, and we've become family. But most of all, we're proud to be another part of what makes Cincinnati a great place to call home.
There are places I remember all my life, some forever, not for better. Some are gone and some remain. All these places had their meanings. With lovers and friends I still can recall. Some are dead and some are living. In my life I've loved them all. But of all these friends and lovers, there is no one compares with you, and these memories